Topic I'd like to talk to you about today is when your burdens get too heavy to bear. I don't care who you are or what your position may be with Christ, you're going to have burdens in your life. And those burdens are simply things that you have to carry in your life. Those burdens may be to assist in helping a loved one who cannot help themselves anymore. Those burdens may be dealing with children that are not respectful like they should be. Those burdens may be dealing with employers on the job that may not be Christians or believers that may be acting out of the ordinary. Regardless of what your burden may be, we all have burdens at one point or another. That burden may be financial. It may be an emotional burden. It may be a physical burden. Whatever the burden may be, you're going to have to carry some on this walk in this journey called Christianity. The thing is, God has put in place ways to help those of us that have to carry these burdens. We want to look for just a moment at some of God's men that had to carry burdens. First and foremost, if we look at someone by the name of Moses, which most of us have heard of, Moses had a heavy burden to carry. He was the one that was in charge and given the charge, per se, in order to take the Israelites from bondage, from the Egyptian bondage, in order to get them to the promised land. He was the man charged with the job. Many cases you'll find, like Moses, when you're trying to help people, when you're trying to assist people, when you're doing the right thing and you feel like you're living your life right and you're listening and obeying God, you find yourself the same person being burdened. And many people ask that question, why is it that if I'm doing the right thing, how is it that I'm going to be the one that's burdened when I'm trying to do the work that God has called me to do? Moses faced this situation. We find that when we're doing the right thing, sometimes people just don't appreciate us. They don't appreciate the hard work and effort that we're putting into the job that we were called to do. And unfortunately, that happens with Christians all the time. And Moses found this out. He was so stressed out that he simply told God in the book of Numbers, chapter 11, at verse 14, he says, I cannot carry these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. And then he asked the Lord, he said, Lord, in layman's terms, if I found favor in your eyes, please do not let my face go into ruins. Don't let me face, rather, my own ruin. In other words, Moses was simply saying, Lord, help me. I'm at a point where Moses, he was there where he just simply wanted to die. He said, just right now, put me to death. If I have to go through this anymore, put me to death. That's a burden that's extremely heavy. If you get to a point where you simply don't want to live anymore, you've carried an extremely heavy burden. I want you to tell you right now, what happened with Moses, the same thing can and will happen with you. When he called out to God, when he humbled himself and said, God, I cannot take anymore, God answered him. God was able to set him up with so many of these elders that were going to assist him. He told him, go and choose some of these men. And particularly, he told him, go out and get yourself 70 of the Israelite elders, and I want you to get them, and when you get them, I want you to employ them so that they can assist you in carrying these burdens. God said that they will help you carry the burden of the people so that you will not have to carry them alone. Regardless of what you're going through in your life, God will send people into your life whereby you don't have to carry the burden alone. Or whatever the burdens you may be carrying. There may be multiple burdens. I want to share another character with you by the name of Elijah. In the book of 1 Kings chapter 19, we see that Elijah was one of God's prophets. He did everything God told him to do. He went out, he sacrificed, he put his life on the line, and he did it with zeal. Nevertheless, that did not stop Elijah from facing challenge after challenge. Elijah's life was threatened. He was actually threatened to be killed. And Elijah got to a point where he simply said these words. And I want you to listen carefully, because many of you have said these words. If you hadn't, live long enough as a believer, and you will. Elijah said in chapter 19 of 1 Kings, verse 4, he said, I have had enough, Lord. I have had enough. How many times have you gotten to the point where you simply threw up your hands and said, Lord, I've had enough? When you've carried burdens so heavy that they're so heavy that you really can't bear anymore, you likewise will say, Lord, I've had enough. What more can I do? Elijah got to that point where he said, what more can I do? I've had enough. He went into a point of what we call depression this day and time. Elijah simply found himself a tree and he went to sleep. But when he went to sleep, God did just what he'll do for your life. He sent an angel to this person by the name of Elijah. He sent an angel to him, and his angel simply said, get up, eat, get yourself together. And Elijah did so, but he went back to sleep, and the angel came a second time and said, get up, get yourself together. You have a journey to take, and you're going to need this strength. You're going to get ready for this journey. You're going to take it. And Elijah listened to this angel the second time around. Elijah went on this journey. He continued, and he went for 40 days on his travels. And when he finished for 40 days of travel, Elijah got to a point where God was prepared to give him additional directions. I want you to understand, when you're going through your challenges, when you're carrying these burdens, likewise, you will be like Elijah, whereby you have to understand it may not happen overnight, whereby God provides you the answers that you seek, but he will place people in your life, such as those angels, that will assist you. That may be a brother, may be a sister, may be a co-worker. If you want to deal with your heavy burdens, I'm going to suggest 5 things for you. First and foremost, pray. First line of defense, prayer. Pray to God when you have those burdens that's too heavy to bear. Secondly, humble yourself and ask for help. And thirdly, be open to listen to those that God placed in your life. God will send angels. Many times we don't listen because they're not the people we expected, and they're also telling us things that we don't want to hear, because sometimes it becomes our will and not God's will. The fourth thing, exercise patience. God wants to deliver you, but you have to have patience to allow him to do that.